Welcome to Diamond Mind Radio. If you are in search of a podcast that is committed to breaking through the barriers of trauma-related experiences while igniting the passion within, then look no further. Through shared life experiences, we are promoting empowerment, positive perspectives, self-growth, and development that encourage a strong mindset. I am your host, Jessica Daly. I am a certified occupational therapy assistant, family and youth coordinator, photographer, mom of two, fire wife, and your new bestie. I am so excited you are here with me today. Enjoy the show. Welcome to episode 6. I am super excited. We have a very special guest with us today. Her name is Sarah Shepard. She's a mother of 4. She's an advocate and a peer specialist. And she's a statewide integration specialist with the Department of Children and Families for the state of Florida. In this episode, Sarah will be sharing her story of recovery and how she's overcome some incredibly traumatic barriers. Sarah's positive outlook on life and her passion for personal growth is beyond inspiring, so inspiring. So get ready to dive deep into a story of recovery and resilience, guys. Today, I want to welcome you, Sarah. So welcome to Diamond Mind Radio. I'm so grateful that you are here with us today and to share your story. Thank you for taking the time out of your very busy schedule. I would like for you to tell our audience a little bit about who you are.
So my name is Sarah Shepard. I am the statewide recovery integration specialist with the Department of Children and Families. So I cover the state of Florida. I work with both substance abuse and mental health, and my job is really to promote the recovery-oriented, it's not a framework, it's values, and basically it's making sure that people who are receiving services are treated like people, and so trying to help educate providers and the community on how important it is to focus on recovery instead of focusing on the problems.
Tell us a little bit about your background and your story.
Okay, so I will, I'll start, with childhood quickly, but, I come from a family that is very hush-hush, when things were going on, it wasn't really that we talked about things. It was kind of like if you can't see them, or they just didn't want people to see or hear, what could possibly really be going on within our household, and my family struggles with, mental health and substance use disorder, and it's been ongoing cycles throughout my family, and I was raised really kind of feeling like I was not in a safe place because I really couldn't, I didn't have a lot of support in when I was feeling things, so I didn't have a lot of guidance or people telling me that it was okay, or you know what I mean? I just didn't have a lot of support through childhood. And when I was, 11, I babysat for a guy. My friend and I, we had been babysitting for this guy, and, he started, it was like a sexual abuse, a molestation thing, and I didn't really have anybody that I could turn to. And so, at a really young age, I picked up using drugs and alcohol and sex even. I pretty much went wild after that situation, and I was really just trying to cover the way that I felt, which was scared, and I was just really afraid, and I got caught in some cycles, and I moved forward. So through my teenage years, I would pretty much just party on the weekends, and sometimes it would leave during the week, and I was doing a lot of party drugs is really what it was, and there was a point where I was taking a lot of ecstasy, I was doing a lot of ecstasy, and I can remember sitting with a friend one night, and he had worked at a local club, and I had taken quite a lot, and he had gotten off work, so it was like 3, 4 in the morning, and he was sitting with me, and, I'm like, man, if I could just have like one more, like I'll be good, right? Everything will be set. And, he asked the guy who was with us, like, how many has she done? And, I had done 8 at that point in the night. And he looked at me and was like, don't you think maybe you've got a little bit of a problem, or maybe it's a little too much. And I was so young at the time that it was really like my first awareness. But to me, I was like, well, the more the better. I was just in this mode of continuously trying to cover up the way that I felt and who I was. And so, I moved forward, and, I got married at a young age. I had a couple of kids. I bought a house. But none of that was like ever enough for me. Like nothing like stopped or helped me feel like I understood life. You know what I mean? Like, so I remember one day waking up, and I like had these kids, and I had this husband, I had this house. I was so unhappy with all of it, like I loved my children. I loved my daughters as much as I knew how to, but I didn't really know what that meant, and so I had these kids, and then so I leave my ex-husband for a guy that I'm working with, and he's using, and we were emotionally and physically abusive. I was physically abusive. He was emotionally abusive. And the police were there often, and, I got pregnant really quick, and, come the 4th pregnancy, like, we had picked up an opioid addiction. I was working at this restaurant, and, everyone, I don't want to say everyone was doing it, but there was a big majority of the group that we hung out with at the restaurant that were taking these pills. And I remember the first time I took them, I'm like, this is like, I don't feel anything, like I take this, and what I feel is I feel happy, and I can just move forward and forget like all of the damage that I have done, and that has been done to me. And so I like moved forward, and I remember like we would play cards at my house, and these people would come over, and they would say like, instead of doing these pills, do these pills. And so I moved quickly from one drug to the next drug, and I was snorting them and getting them however I could. I was just trying to, basically forget. So here I am with, at this point in time, 3 kids. I have this addiction that's coming on, and I remember like even going to try and get a hysterectomy because I was scared, because I didn't really want to have any more kids, because I had a drug problem, and I couldn't take care of the ones that I had, and I was too afraid to ask the department for help or anybody for help, because I was in like a really shameful place. And like I was afraid I was going to lose my kids and all of this other stuff. And so I remember like just trying, and the board like denied me, said no, and I'm like, I'm 25, I have 3 kids, and I have a drug problem, like, can you please just like take it? And they just wouldn't do it, and so like these people would come over from work, and they would said to do these other pills, and so it became like I was doing them at night just to relax so I could sleep, and then it became, well, I'll just do one in the morning, you know what I mean, so I can be like awake. And then it was like, well, I'll do one at lunchtime because I'm so tired now. And so once that pattern started, it was like the grip of addiction. Like every time I didn't have something, like I felt it all the way to my soul. Like it was ripping at my bones and my muscles, and it just really controlled every single thing that I did. And so, like, no matter how much I loved my kids, it was almost like every day I was just fighting to stay alive. Like I couldn't break that cycle, And so I ended up with the 4th pregnancy, and during that pregnancy I was not able to put down drugs and alcohol, and so I stayed on the opiates. I had an OB who actually would prescribe them to me. And, so I was doing a bunch of them really quickly and then trying to file a police report saying they were stolen and everything that you can imagine. I was really I was pulling every trick that I could. And, towards the end of it, we were selling drugs for some really bad people, and we were hiding really big guns in our houses, and we had people in and out, and it was a really unsafe place. But all I could think about is that I needed to use in order to stay alive. And so, in 2010, I had my daughter. She was born substance exposed, but in February, in January, the last week of January, my niece had died from natural causes. And I had a friend who was shot in the face during a drug deal. And I remember going to bed that night and realizing, I didn't have any of my kids, and I couldn't remember when their dad and the grandma had actually taken them from me. I just laid there, hopeless, and had no idea what was going on. And I picked up the phone, and I was trying to, call my ex-husband because, the child had died, and I just wanted to hear my kids' voices. And he just kept forwarding my phone calls, and I couldn't get through. And I just remember in that moment, saying this, what we call Foxwell Prayer, God, if you get me clean, I'll just do whatever it takes, And so, the next morning I woke up and I was not clean. I didn't just click my heels, and it was not some easy pathway. You know what I mean? I knew that I wanted to stop using. I just didn't know how to physically be able to cope with it, moving forward, And so, I had my daughter in February, and it didn't get any better. They asked me to stay on the opiates while I was breastfeeding, but because I was no longer pregnant, I was doing even more stuff. And so the nurses actually had a final removal on my children done with the department. They went in and did an emergency hearing so that the kids would not come home with me. And so, so I went through this another month or so of, really bad times. And then in April of 2010, I committed some crimes and was arrested by Volusia County, or by the Edgewater Police Department and the New Smyrna Beach Police Department. I was put in jail, and I remember sitting in booking going this is it. This is the answer to the prayer that I had prayed months ago. This is my opportunity to actually do something different, And so I did. The people in booking thought I was ridiculous because I was smiling and I had these really big charges, and they're what is wrong with you? You know what I mean? But for me, it was I was finally safe, and if I look back on my childhood and all of those things, that's really what I have been looking for, is safety. And what I've learned is that when you don't have somebody to make you feel safe, like a parent or somebody in your life who is there with you or for you, you know what I mean? I just questioned everything in my life. And so with all of that being said, I had the perfect opportunity to do something different, and I did. And, I had a doctor once tell me, go to these meetings, and so I started going to meetings, and it was scary, and it was, there were a lot of people in there who were pretty jacked up and talking about doing all kinds of therapeutic work and all this stuff. And, I barely made it through high school, and I didn't think I was capable. You know what I mean? There was just all of these little bits and pieces. But what I knew is I was really tired of doing it, of being in the spot that I was in. And so, and I remembered that I had prayed that prayer that I was going to do whatever it took. So, I kept going to meetings, and I didn't have my kids in my custody for a whole year. So I was going through this case plan, and all of these things were going on, and my kid's father, his mom had the kids, so he would be there all the time. And so they didn't really like me. And so I had this opportunity to work on myself, and my contact with my kids was pretty limited in the first year, which is sad if you think about like all of the first year moments. But I knew that I was so messed up that if I didn't have the opportunity to do some work on myself, like I was not going to be able to be the mom that I needed to be. And so like I've been in recovery since April 28th of 2010, and I haven't had any slips or fallbacks or relapses with drugs and alcohol. I have continued to work programs and like build a fellowship. And so I come into the service system. I had a friend who passed away. I think it was 2011 or 2012, I believe. He struggled with drugs and alcohol, and he fell into a train. And when he did that, my whole world it just changed. Like I stopped really just doing work for me, and I started advocating for the people that I loved and the people that I knew were struggling, because I know what it's like to not be able to get out of it, and so I started going to these task force meetings, the Volusia Flagler Substance Abuse Task Force, with a friend of mine. Her name's Kim Mitchell, and so she introduced me to this group, and the group just kind of took me in, right? Like I was sporadic with my thoughts. I was like advocating, out there. And, Eugene Griffith, he was one of the officers at New Smyrna. Like he really helped me understand why it was necessary for me to be in the service arena. And that was, he said, I work with people, like I see drug addicts all the time. And what we see is we see like somebody have 30 days clean, and they're telling us that you arrested us 30 days ago. And now here we are. And then, 30 days later, I'll be arresting them for armed robbery or something, and so he said people in long-term recovery don't talk about it, and so we don't know that it exists. When we look at meetings, we see meetings as maybe a place that people go and like hide out, but he goes, I'll never understand why people can do things that will literally blow their faces up, but you can, and that's why we need you at the table. And so I did some public service announcements, got really involved, had to go through a background clearance for my charges, ended up working with moms and babies. I know that part of my story is leaving my child behind in the hospital. And so one of the way that I made amends was to work with moms who are in dependency and to help them try and break generational cycles within their families. And so that was my first service position, or delivering services. Then I became a certified recovery peer specialist for the state of Florida. So I was certified by the Florida Certification Board after some extensive training, so that I could also deliver services in a different way. And about a year and a half into my position, I was given I noticed that there was an opportunity for a job with the department at the Office of Substance Abuse and Mental Health in Tallahassee for the statewide recovery integration specialist. And it was a big jump, but I made the decision to do it because when I was on the ground, I had all of these struggles with trying to provide services, and I would get really frustrated. I mean, I watched people die. I watched people, women sleep who were homeless that had to sleep on the side of buildings during hurricanes, where they would have to take drugs in order to just sleep through the night. They would miss their visit, and all of a sudden the system said they didn't love their children. And so I watched a lot of things go on where I felt like if we were able to just try and help each other overcome barriers and struggles, that this would be a lot easier for everyone. You know what I mean? And it's those generational cycles. I had 14 cases, and 12 of them had been kids in foster care that were now having their kids removed. And so those kinds of things really frustrated me. And so I was given the opportunity to step up to a level where I can help support the state while it makes necessary changes with the behavioral health system. And so it has been a wonderful opportunity. And, my recovery journey hasn't been easy. My kid's father, he died in 2014 on Christmas. I've had a lot of losses since walking into programs. Probably greater than 80 people that I've known and loved have passed away due to the disease of addiction and alcoholism. And, it just makes me want to keep fighting harder, and so, that's really like my story, the walk in recovery. Again, it hasn't been easy. And, I went through a sexual assault in 2014 also. And it was actually a traumatic year. My daughter had brain surgery that year. She had fallen out of a bunk bed. I went through the assault, and then my kid's father passed away. And it was like I was left in this spot where I had 4 years clean, and I had all these tools and skills, and I had amazing support, but I found myself like wanting to die. Like I wanted to commit suicide, and I had never been depressed. I had always struggled with anxiety. So it was like a new feeling for me that I didn't understand. And what I know about that is that in those moments, I didn't want to use a drink or a drug. I much rather would have just died. And where that might sound sick to some people, it showed me that this life that I'm living, like I really want it, so no matter what, I reached out, went to therapy like 4 times a week at some points, and here I am today, and I'm in like such a peaceful spot, and even when things aren't easy, they're still, good. So my goal is to help break generational cycles so that the kids that we have that are being raised today don't find themselves in the same spots that their parents are in, right? Because we all know that we have struggles with mental health here, and we all know that we have an opioid epidemic here. It's just like, how can we recover, because it is possible. So
Absolutely. So I know you mentioned that you went through therapy at least 4 times a week.
Yes.
Was there anything in that time of feeling that you just wanted to die, disappear, that helped you?
With the therapy, or
aside from therapy?
Well, I had you. You helped me a lot through a lot of the things that I couldn't understand, you know what I mean, because of your own personal experiences. So a lot of it was having positive people in my life and having the social support.
Okay, so if you could just list some other supports or things that helped you through that time of depression and what you did, and walk us through what that looked like.
Well, the depression was really short-lived. I would say the PTSD was much longer than the depression. I had some severe post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms from the assault in my recovery program. I think that was really difficult. And then the depression that came after Matt's death, I think, I went to therapy a lot, and I had a couple of friends that I could count on that I really could just reach out and say things over and over and over again if I needed to, and I continuously went to meetings even when I didn't feel like it. And I kept moving forward, and I really threw myself into service more. And so after my assault and recovery, and it kind of all goes together a little bit, if that's okay. Mm-hmm. I had reached out to women in the recovery program, and a lot of them had turned their backs on me, and they had said, like, we told you not to go out with him, or, we know he's done horrible things. And I've even had women say, like, he could have anybody he wants. Why would he do that to you? You know what I mean? And so there were so many different things, and it was such an uncomfortable place to be. And in the moment, like, somebody who was helping me was like, are you sure you want to go to the police? And it was like a second guessing of everything that was going on. And so, like, I remember actually coming to you, like the following day, and going over this scenario, and you were like, I want you to talk to Emily, or I want you to talk to, Will's cousin, and you connected me, and, I ended up talking to the Officer Griff, who I had been doing service work with, and, like, he was like, look, you have to do your due diligence. That's what we do, and, it's the right thing to do. And so I really think that taking those steps and having people to walk those steps with me helped me to not have to hide from myself and not have to hide from my inner truth. And so the more that I did these things for the right reason, the more confident that I felt within myself, no matter how my support program was breaking down around me. And so I remember, like, I reached a point where I was super angry, and it had been a long time since I had been angry. And I was pissed off that my life in recovery was gone. This world that I had created was gone. That these friendships that I had for so long were just broken. And so in that moment, I knew that if I didn't make the choice to do something different, that perspective of mine could really drive me into a really scary place. And so one of the things I did is I started going out to our local women's rehab facility, and I started bringing women to meetings and answering the phone for them. And so in those moments, I made the decision that I was going to be the woman that I couldn't find. And so I did that for a long time, and that's really when I got connected to the Moms and Babies program and helping with those kinds of things. So really it was about continuing to go to therapy and listening to what my therapists say, reaching out to people who love me, right, that I knew loved me. I went to church a lot. I did whatever I could, and if it worked, I stuck with it. So
I love that what you said. It's so powerful that you became the woman that you couldn't find. That's amazing, Sarah. Yeah, that is. And I didn't mention where we met, because I've known you for almost 6 years now, right?
Longer than that. Yeah.
Really? Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay.
So it would have been kindergarten we met.
Okay. So yeah, because our girls were in preschool together.
Yeah, but we met at kindergarten, volunteering with Evan and Will. They were in the same kindergarten class.
Yeah. That's so crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was funny because our kids would say, because your two youngest and mine are they're both same age, and the girls the same age and the boys the same age, and they would say, Your mom goes to school with my mom, and we go to school together. It was so cute because we went to college, not in the same classes, but I remember the first time I met you. So it's just been I've seen a lot of like amazing things that you've done, and not only are you one of my best friends, but you're also an inspiration to me, and I love you so much, and I'm really happy that you came and did this because your story is so impactful. And I know there's got to be people listening and relating to what you're saying. And hopefully, I know, helping somebody out there.
Yeah, I mean, and that's really what it's about. Like, I stay clean and I work program and I do what I need to do for me. But really, like, my goal in life is just to help as many people as I can, because that's really where I find the most gratitude, and like I watch people die every day, like trying to get to a place where I am blessed enough to be sitting in, you know what I mean? And it's I refuse to take that for granted, and so I'll continue to talk about my story and spread a message. And there are multiple pathways to recovery at this point. We've reached a point in our society where, my 12-step groups are not going to work for everyone in the moment or even at all. You know what I mean? And so we're trying to figure out like how to promote recovery in so many different ways. And just that breaking the stigma is really one of the hugest parts of this. And I've learned that not everybody is going to be comfortable with my story. Mm-hmm. Not everybody is going to, be able to understand. And like, one of the things while working in the service is people would say like, I was molested as a child and this didn't happen to me. So it was your choice to be a junkie, or it was your choice to be a drug addict. You know what I mean? And so I really got to thinking about, why is that? Like, what is it that makes me different? Like, I heard someone share a story once about their journey, and they said, I was the mom in the car shooting up with my kid in the back seat while this other mom's jogging down the road with her baby in the stroller. You know what I mean? And I'm looking at it going like, why did my life turn out this way? And why is yours that way? Mm-hmm. And so, that fueled me to get a bachelor's in psychology, because I wanted to understand, like, why are we different? You know what I mean? And what is it about me that could have been helped or could have been different in order to have a different outcome? You know what I'm saying? And so each of these people in my life, whether it's a negative comment or whether it's a positive comment, they all play a role in me actually getting to figure out who it is that I am. And, that sexual assault, Jess, it was really hard on me. And my kid's father's death, it was just all really difficult all in one time. And I think what it really taught me is that I know who I am today. I know what I deserve. I know what my boundaries are most of the time. You know what I mean? Like, and I just get to be a good human being. You know what I mean? I could sit here and be upset about some of the really bad things that I did, or that my childhood wasn't the greatest. You know what I mean? And all of those things play a role in who I become as an adult. And it isn't until I am blessed with the awareness that doesn't have to run my life, that I have the opportunity to break some of those chains, and though I get to be a good human, I'm not perfect. And I think that that's another blessing. Like, I don't have to do everything right. I don't have to be like, on point all of the time. I just really have to have good intentions, and it's all about like why I'm doing things, if that makes any sense.
Totally makes sense.
So to me, it's a blessing, and I just hope that as long as I continue to work a program of recovery, and I just want to state, like, with all of this being said and having a little over 9 years in recovery, like, people go back out. Like, people stay clean for 20 years and have some kind of a relapse, or 15 years, or 2 days. You know what I mean? It happens. And I even think a lot of times in our programs, we stigmatize ourselves. Like, I'm carrying a greater stigma because I'm keeping this anonymity, which is necessary in some cases, but like, if I end up going back to doing some of the things that I had done in the past, which of course I hope that I don't ever, but it's not because the programs fail, it's because I make the decision not to work the program anymore. And I truly believe that. I believe that when I was using, I didn't have the choice. I couldn't stop, like, no matter what. My brain, again, it was more important than food when I was using. You know what I mean? And now that I am stopped and I've had some therapy, in between, it is a choice. You know what I mean? So for me, as long as I make the choice to choose, the recovery aspect of it, everything's going to be okay. So, or, it will be mostly okay.
Yeah.
It'll be peaceful.
So to close up, for somebody listening out there who's going through something similar or a part of your story, what advice do you have for them if they're going through that right now?
Well, there are just so many organizations are out there that are willing to help, and there are oftentimes, like we have access lines in the state of Florida, access to treatment lines, and where you can call and get some information on what treatment looks like. And so, you know, because again, there are free 12-step programs anywhere, pretty much anywhere in the world, really. They're all over the place. And then there are treatment places where you can go for sliding scale fees to get like medication assisted treatment if you need it, which would be like Suboxone or Subutex or Vivitrol, you know. And then there's you know, therapy, or there's all kinds of different ways now to try and get some help. I think the biggest thing is don't give up before the miracle happens. And you know, it isn't easy. It's what I heard somebody say once, like, recovery is for the strong people. You know, addiction is for the weak, because it's much easier to go back to what we've always known as opposed to facing those inner demons and moving forward. And so for me, like, I would suggest finding some people who you fit with in a positive way and trying to find a way to work over those barriers.
That's really great advice.
Thanks.
Really great advice. What about for the person who is in your position now? What advice would you give that person?
So you mean like somebody who is in long-term recovery?
Yes.
Well, you know, the programs talk about like personal anonymity, so everyone has the option or opportunity.
Let me stop you there for a second.
Okay.
Can you explain personal anonymity?
Sure. Like 12-step programs generally talk about anonymity. Like we go into meetings and we don't talk about who goes to meetings with us. Like what you share in a meeting is safe there. And so regardless of who you are out in the community or what you're doing, like, you can feel safe coming in to a meeting, and your job isn't going to know about it. You know what I mean? Or like, nobody's going to, if I run into you in Publix, it's not my job to say like she or he has a drug or alcohol problem and I met them at meetings. You know what I mean? Right. So it's really to safeguard the person. And I've known people who are attorneys who are, you know, they value their anonymity. They're afraid that if their jobs find out, they're not going to want to keep them there, even if they're in long-term recovery, you know. And so I have deep respect for how the program outlines those things, because, you know, if somebody messes up and then everyone says, oh, those people in NA or AA or Celebrate Recovery, look at how ridiculous they really are, you know. So it kind of stigmatizes, again, all of it, you know. And so for me, I know that I lived a lie for a really long time and I hid from everything. And so I appreciate being able to come out and say, you know, I'm in recovery. I had a lot of struggles and here I am now, not in that same way, you know. And like, we have judges who are very open about being in recovery. We have a state senator right now who's in long-term recovery who talks about it often, and he's a huge advocate for a lot of the programs that we have going on. You know what I mean? And so we have a lot of people in higher positions that are finally starting to say, okay, I go to meetings, or I've done medication-assisted therapy, and now I'm well. You know, I found a place of wellness. And so, you know, it's really, it kind of depends on what your life looks like. I just know that people don't know that we exist or that we can recover unless we talk about it, you know. And so for me, again, it's important to be open and honest about who I am and where I've been. And I'll tell you, again, I've had my critics, right? Not everybody wants to hear it. But those people have fallen off, and the people who stand by me are important, and they're very supportive within my life. So the right people stay, the wrong people go.
That's right. One more question for you,
Sure.
and we'll wrap it up. So what about for the woman who went through sexual assault? Because I know that's has been a discussion with a few people lately within my circle as an adult female.
Yes.
Is there any advice you can give to that person?
That was, again, I've been through a lot of stuff in my life, and that was probably the most difficult thing that I have ever been through. And, I'd put myself in a position a lot of times while I was in active addiction where I wanted to say no but didn't have the voice. Mm-hmm. And so I did a lot of things that I wish I wouldn't have, and so when this assault happened and I voiced it like over and over and over and over again, and I made the decision to come forward, after a little bit of guidance from you, it was difficult. But again, had I not found somebody who loved me to help me walk through those steps and those tough moments, I would have probably it could have been really bad for me to be hiding from what I really believed in and my values and my morals. And so, I went through, so that was in 2014. I would say that I have been happy for a year. And so that means that the last 3 years were hell. And they were a process. And every day I had to get up and make a decision on whether or not I wanted to continue to go to recovery meetings, whether or not when people said it's time to accept and get over it, whether I was going to do that, and so, all I could do is what I knew my values and morals laid on, and that is to be honest and tell the truth and be open. And I can say going to the police was not an easy journey. It was not, I was interrogated, and by the police officer that I met with, he was awesome. The detectives that I met with were horrible. And, they were demeaning and questions after questions. And the case ended up going to state's attorney because there was a controlled phone call that was done and there was some admitting to the behavior, but they felt that it was not enough at the state's attorney's level. And so I had reached out to some other women in the program that I had heard that things had gone on with them, and I was trying to do the right thing, but nobody wanted to come out. So I would say if it's something that you're going through, follow your values and morals, whatever that looks like to you. Find your safety, find your safe people, and continue to talk about it and continue to reach out to other women and support groups. I mean, I did support groups, I did therapy, I did hang out with my friends, and I found I had people in my life that even 4 years later, when I walk into a meeting and I'm like, oh my God, I feel horrible right now. I feel like I'm breaking down on the inside and I'm not even sure why, they don't question that I'm crazy or ridiculous, They just let me talk about it and then it's gone. And so what I can say is time is very powerful. If you're putting in the work, time really heals, and I'll never be the woman that I was before this happened. I tried to hang on to her and even get her back, and that was where I was so angry that I had lost my place in this program and that I lost everything that was important to me. But once I let go of who it was that I had been and started focusing on where I can go from here, I have grown into a person that I would have never given myself the credit that I could have become. So healing is possible, and it might take years, but it works. All of those things work.
You're so right. That was beautiful. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for your time and coming in and doing this. And she's my first guest, so this just makes it even better. Thanks again, Sarah. Is there anything else that you want to share before we close out?
No, I just want to say thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be able to share my story, and especially sitting next to you, because you've been such a huge part in helping me overcome some of the barriers that I have faced, and watching you be a good mom as, like, I'm learning to be a mom, right? Even though you don't know that, but watching the things that you do has really just helped put me in a place where now I am that.
You are
person.
So much more.
Most of the time.
Rockstar mom. You should see her with her 4 kids, her 2 oldest daughters. They look like they're triplets. Like, you just told me wearing the same size clothing, which is crazy.
We are. I was recently diagnosed with this ridiculous celiac, and so I went from like a size 12 to like a size 3, and I haven't been a size 3 since high school.
That's insane.
So I'm trying to embrace it, but we wear the same clothes.
Yeah. So. You just said you fit into a size 16 kid.
I was a 16 kid. Yes. Yeah.
Well, that's another conversation we could always have.
Nutrition.
Nutrition.
All about it. Yeah.
We'll have to put that on the calendar. So you haven't heard the last from Sarah Shepherd. So thank you for tuning in, guys, and talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks.
Whoa, wasn't that amazing? What an amazing episode. Sarah has such an incredible story, and I feel truly blessed to have her in my life and to be able to share her story with you guys today. She is truly an inspiration to us all. She shows us that not only can we overcome, but we can conquer hardships. She has not only embraced her life of sobriety, but she has made it her life mission to guide others into and through recovery. She is truly amazing. It takes a lot of courage to share personal stories. There's definitely no doubt about that. But I wanted to tell you guys, how she was telling us about that mugshot that she was smiling in. She actually shares that photo on social media. And I'm sure I can get permission to share that mugshot for you guys too. And she does that because she wants to spread awareness and education. So again, she is amazing. So off air, Sarah just wanted me to express, it was such a long episode, but it was so worth it. Her story is so impactful, but she wanted to let you guys know that stories are truly important. They are so important. And Sarah sharing hers today, I really know that she is going to help someone out there and someone can relate, because I know she's helped me too. I know she mentioned that I've helped her, but it's definitely a two-way street there. So I want to let you guys know that I am thankful for you, and you write your own story. You have the power to live the life that you want and deserve. It's been super exciting sharing with you today, and I hope you enjoyed our time together. There is so much more I have to share with you, and in order for me to do this, I need your help. Do me a huge favor and leave me a review right now. Like right now. These reviews are so important. Your review provides us with the fuel necessary for us to grow and reach the masses. I can't wait to hear from you and what you guys think. I absolutely would also love to connect with you guys. You can find me at Diamond Mind Radio on Instagram and Facebook. And while you're at it, head on over to diamondmindradio.com. Don't miss a beat by signing up for our email list. I have some amazing freebies I'm working on for you, so you won't want to miss out. Thank you for tuning in, and again, welcome to the Diamond Mind community, where strong minds connect.